All righty. Hello. Welcome to TCCA 2020. This is the 10 o'clock session 3. Thank you all out there for joining us. You probably were in session 1 and 2. You already know. If you have any questions, please drop them in the YouTube chat. We will, for Kiran's presentation here, we'll be addressing them throughout and at the end of the presentation. And now I would like to introduce to you Miss Kiran Kazmi, and she's going to talk to you today about Nearpod. We also have here Toshiba Beasley. She's going to be our question moderator as well. So we'll be hiding in. Kiran, go ahead.
Thank you, Anne. Hi, everybody. So I really just wanted to do this presentation as a way to troubleshoot some stuff inside Google Slides and also introduce some really fun things about Nearpod. This is just a random slideshow that I have created for one of my courses, and in it, we are going to just really quickly do some Nearpod stuff. So in your slides, in your menu, you have add-ons. If you don't have a Nearpod add-on, you would just go to the bottom where it says Get Add-ons, and it'll open up an entire Google Slides library of add-ons, and Nearpod is usually right at the top, and you can install that. And when you do, it'll open on your right-hand side, and it has a crazy amount of options that you can add to your slide presentation, ranging from audio files to a collaborative board, which is super great for when you're doing a presentation for your colleagues. Flowcab, which is one of the things that I love. Flipgrid is now integrated, and it goes on and on and on, where you can add all these different contents and formative pieces in your presentation as checkpoints so that your students are getting that checking for understanding frequently, or your colleagues, when you're presenting, are getting those breaks to have talking pieces where they can collaborate. Once you have added any of the multitude of options into your slideshow, you just pick one. Add is a question. If my keyboard would work. And yes, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. And it'll show up in your slideshow as a white Nearpod slide that tells you what option you picked. And then you click this Save and Go to Nearpod button. And it'll take you to either the first thing, it'll be a login page, but I'm already logged in. And it'll save your entire presentation of Google Slides right here. And I will show you next steps, because once it's saved, it has all your Nearpod integrated items. But if you want to add more stuff that is specific to Nearpod, you will do a couple of things. First, you'll toggle over and you'll click these 3 dots. Then you'll click Duplicate, and you will duplicate inside of Nearpod, and it'll create a Nearpod specific version of your presentation. And what it does is it changes everything other than the Nearpod add-ons of activities that you added into a static image. So now when I go to edit a slide, it is one solid image. And I can move it up and down. I can zoom in to a specific section. And this is how it'll show up after I save. So you'll be able to see the difference once the slide is saved of how it looks. So you can always edit it again. And you're like, no, I actually want it here, and I actually want it smaller. And one of the cool things that Nearpod does is allows you to add an audio file or a voiceover to your slide. In our last presentation, we got some questions about whether it allows you to just do a general voiceover over the entire presentation. And unfortunately, It doesn't right now, but Nearpod is doing lots of updates and upgrades, so that might be something that comes to us sooner rather than later. And you just record your voiceover, which is great for your AEA or ESL students, your CT/CTM students. It's very helpful for them. And you record, save, and then save and exit your slide. Once you have saved your presentation, if you're going to present it, you can click and do share with teachers. And you can either send a link if you just want someone to be able to see it, but please know that whenever you do a link, it will expire and the link will eventually break. So a lot of times when you guys are sharing the student paste, this link either puts a cap and it said, and new students in Schoology or Canvas can no longer access your presentation. It's because there's a maximum amount of days and there's a maximum amount of students that can access this. So what you want to do instead is embed this into your Schoology. So you would copy this embed code and go to your Schoology or Canvas. And you're going to, for Schoology, you would do add materials, add a page, and you're going to switch to HTML mode and paste that embed code with your Nearpod, whatever the name is. You can add alignments for learning objectives. And this is something I forgot in presentation 1, but if you click this little, it looks like a newspaper down here, it says ABC and it says display on new page, it'll show your presentation on the main page. So let's create that. So we go down. This one I did as just regular Nearpod where you click it and it's embedded on a separate page, but it's available for the students to view. Once it loads, you'll see what I mean. So while we're waiting for this to load, Toshiba, do we have questions?
At this point, we don't have any questions.
Cool. I feel like I'm pre-answering from the last session.
Yes.
Oh, she's being slow today. I'm sorry, y'all. So let's look at the embedded one that is inline. And basically it's just, instead of me clicking and it going to a secondary page, it's just showing up right in the front. Please know that if you put a video, sometimes Schoology for some reason doesn't play the video inside of Schoology, even though you've embedded the Nearpod. So what I do is I always put the title with a little note that says, to view the video, click the open in Nearpod double square on the bottom right. And what it'll do is it opens up your Nearpod in basically a very large full screen option, and the students can go through as normal and view all your materials and view the videos without it giving them an error message.
We do have a question that came in.
Okay.
And that question is, this is just to view, right? Or will you be able to see the reports?
You can see the report. So when it, just like if you were giving them the code, anything that's linked to your Nearpod still gets the data. Any other questions?
No other questions.
Okay, so in our last session, I also showed how you can look at the Nearpod library. If you have a special access, you will need to ask your DLS for your building and your district. But if you're going to add a video, unless you have a specific video that you have yourself, it gives you the option to look at Nearpod videos that they already have pre-made with formative questions built in, or you can find a video on YouTube and include that. And the really cool thing that it does is when you've added a video for Nearpod, like I said, it has these built-in formative questions, but you yourself can add questions on top. And it's similar to Edpuzzle in that way, but it's built in, which is really, really convenient because now I'm not taking 2 steps to do something. I have my notes and I have my support videos that have these checking for understanding and formative breaks inside of them. And it's all in one presentation, which is really, really cool. So you can add more questions, open-ended or multiple choice, and go through whatever the video is and save it, and it'll add it to your presentation. And you can move your slide wherever you want so that it suits your needs better, because when you do add, it'll just automatically put it at the end. In the last session, also talked about the different add-ons. I know a lot of people, I was talking with Anne and Toshiba about this, it used Pear Deck, which I really enjoy as well. But if you're a Aldine Schoology teacher, you'll know that our mandate right now is that we got to keep our kids inside Schoology, making sure they do the work right. And Pear Deck, while it's wonderful and amazing, and I very much enjoy it, publishes your presentation on their own site, and you can't embed it into Schoology. With Nearpod, you get everything on top of their library, and you are able to embed inside of Schoology. So it takes that extra step of a student having to leave out because it's all in one place and they're getting the credit hours that they need, and you get to create a really interesting interactive presentation without dealing with another website on top of whatever add-ons you already made. Any questions?
One person would like to know, does this work for the silver license?
If I'm not mistaken, Anne said in the last one that the video library for Nearpod is accessible if you're a district user, but the embed and the add-on is for any level of Nearpod user.
Perfect. That answered her question, I believe.
Great. I also introduced the last session to this really awesome website. I prefer to build my presentations in Google Slides because I can customize it and do different fonts and colors and images that I really, really like and fit my aesthetic as a person and a teacher. In Nearpod, unfortunately, they have a very limited selection of font and themes, as you can see right here. This is pretty much what they have. But the great thing about building inside of Google Slides and transferring that into Nearpod is you get to use really cool free tools like Slides Go, which are free themes if you give them credit at the end for your presentations. So you go through their library and it has an option for Google Slides or for PowerPoint, and it makes a force copy. And now you have that in your Google library for Google Slides for forever. And what I do is I just make a copy of the presentation and then I edit where I want. And they include free, by the way, I'm not being paid for this. I just am obsessed with this site. I feel like that's what YouTubers say. So I'm going to just say it because I'm cool that way, you know? They include a bunch of free images at the bottom for you to use and infographics, and it's really very helpful for when you're creating your presentation to have everything in just one place. And then I'm able to add my Nearpod formative pieces and copy it and make a duplicate inside of Nearpod. And now I have like the best of both worlds, basically. It's super great. Anybody have any questions?
Do you have any suggestions on how to differentiate your lesson using Nearpod?
Yes. So what I do is for my regs, I make, well, for everybody, I make one slideshow, and then I make a copy of the slideshow and whatever activities that I created inside of it. And for my regs, it stays the same. The information is there, and I'll add the voiceover that I showed y'all in the editing of the Nearpod, this audio option where I audio record. And then for my CT/CTM and my ESL students, I do that as well. But specifically for my ESL students, I use an add-on tool called Slides Translator. And I do text box, but it gives you options to do a voice type or floating. And basically, whatever slide you're on, you can pick a language and it'll translate what's on the slide into that language. And I just copy and paste it into a side-by-side of my slide so that my students who are ESL or AEA now have that reference point of they're learning the English and it's reinforcing their English language acquisition, but they also get a built-in translated version of it without having to worry about going to Google Translate or jumping back and forth between multiple screens. It's already available for them. Anything else?
Have you tried incorporating group work using Nearpod with your students?
Yes, so there's this really cool option in your when you're adding Nearpod. It has like a collaborate board. So sometimes I'll break up my presentation into smaller sections, and I will add the collaborate boards where I will put a topic and a question, and then I will do, this is when I'm in person. Mind you, I'm now a virtual teacher, so it's a little bit different. I do discussion posts on Schoology, but sometimes I'll still throw these on there so I can see what the students are thinking. And I have the students send in little notes or popcorning basically of our topic for the day. I also would do pair ups. So I would have a presentation and then I would have my formative multiple choice or open-ended questions, and 2 or more students in a group, back when that was, safe, could work on those assessments together. And I really enjoy this, but at the end, I like to put a matching activity of word, definition, and picture, and I do it as a game for like a timer. It's kind of how you can do on Quizlet. If any of you guys are familiar with Quizlet, they have an option like that, but this is like, again, built in one place for you and your students.
Another question is, do you have any suggestions for using Nearpod in the math and science courses?
So I actually know a couple of teachers that use it in math and science, and they usually tend to add the open-ended so that the students, if they have an equation or a specific graph, the students can interpret that graph inside of open-ended. And it does have new math options like the graphing calculator and again, drawing. When I'm using it on my phone, I like to put a draw option because then if I'm working on an equation, which would be great for math and science, if you had that draw it option and you guys typed up in the description or instructions right here, then the student could write out on their tablet or phone and upload it, and it would be a great way to make this an interactive piece for your math and science classrooms.
Okay. The next question is, what is the learning curve for those new to technology?
I promise, I know it seems like a lot to digest, but it is not that bad. I would say if you gave yourself at least 15 minutes a day to mess around with the add-on in Google Slides, to just, get used to the different options, and then you gave 15 minutes to yourself working with your duplicated image or duplicated presentation inside of Nearpod, and you were able to see what it looks like as a student and how to manipulate it as a teacher. I don't think that more than a couple days, a week, if you're really taking your time with it, would you become like an expert. It's very intuitive. You just got to give yourself the time to play around a little bit.
If you share via Google Slides, is it still interactive? Will you receive data on Nearpod?
So if you're only sharing the Google slide, you won't, because what happens is what appears is the Google slide is just this white slide that has a description of what was put there. So you have to share the Nearpod in order to get the data and for it to be interactive.
At this point, there's no more questions. Could you clarify how to share?
How to share the Nearpod?
Yes.
Okay, so once you have saved and gone to Nearpod, and you're looking on your main page of Nearpod, it'll be doing this, saving your slideshow. Or if you already made the duplicate, it'll be ready to go right here. And you're going to float over and click the 3 dots in the corner and do share with teachers. If you do the links, like I said before, these will break. So if what you want to do is share an editable link with a team member or another teacher or person that you're creating with so that they can make a copy to work on, then by all means send them that. But if you want to make it where people can access and view and participate in the lesson, then embed is what you need to do, because the links will go away. These will stop working. Embed will stay forever. So you'll do embed, you pick your size, you copy that, and then again in Schoology you would do add materials and add a page. You do HTML and you'll put it in there, and you can always edit it to change the size. You would just click on it and it'll become pink, and you can move the dotted lines to change the size and change whether you want to display it on the first page or display on a new page. So I changed the size and I changed it to display on a new page, and now I have this version of my Nearpod embedded and available to view, as long as I don't delete this Nearpod from my Nearpod library. I can move it into a folder, but if I delete it, the embed will stop working. But if I only share a link, the link will crash within a few days, or it'll stop working because the max number of people have used the link.
Okay. Our next question, can I edit the activity in Nearpod like the time to climb?
Yes. So when you make the duplicate of the Nearpod, you can click on the slide and it'll open it up for you and you're able to manipulate it completely. So you can make all the edits you want. And I love Time to Climb. That's a great that's a great formative piece.
How do you share with students?
So when you do the embed in Schoology or Canvas, I share that lesson. It's basically like a published lesson that's built in. If you're doing it in person, it gives you the option to do live, which will give you a code for people to join right here. Or if you want specifically for the students, when you do live, let me correct myself. When you do live and you give them the code, when you change the slide, it changes the slide on their device. But if you do student paced, they'll get a code. They get to go at their own pace and move through the slides how they want, at what pace they want, and they're still doing the activities. This works best when you're in person because this has a max number of days that the code works. And when you're virtual, I'm virtual now, it's easier to embed because now the students can continually reference back to the lesson and work on those formative pieces over and over. And I still get that data.
There's no more questions at this time.
Okay, did I answer that last question properly? I hope I did.
I think
Actually,
so.
they said thank you. So
Okay, great.
Yeah.
When you're in Nearpod, I am a folder fanatic. So last year I was with eighth grade. I have 57 presentations in here. And then I had a couple of that I found and I manipulated from Nearpod. And now for ninth grade, I have my library of presentations I'm working through. But I like to keep things nice and neat. So you can make folders and you can look at your reports, and it is really, really great because even though I'm using Google Slides to make it pretty and, making it interesting, Nearpod is where I get my data, my hard data, and I can organize everything to make sure that I'm hitting those domains of like, I had a formative piece, I had a check for understanding. And it really is helpful for us as teachers to have this as a continual resource and be able to look at our reports and have that as an artifact.
okay, our next question is the data you receive in Schoology 2.
No. So in Schoology, it's just the page that's there. It's not the data. So they're accessing it. They're accessing your presentation through Schoology, but the data is going to Nearpod. Unless you put an option of completion, and then you'll be able to see if a student accessed your presentation or viewed whatever material you were specifically telling them to.
Okay, we have a question. Can you use animated GIFs in Nearpod?
Oh, yes, we had that question. So when you create a Google Slides, you can use GIFs. The problem is when you duplicate into Nearpod, it turns it into a static image. So what you have to do is edit, and you can add a slide where it's video or web content, and you look for a MP4 file version of whatever the GIF is. So normally a GIF is like 3 to 6 seconds. So you would look for a video version of the GIF that is 3 to 6 seconds that you can then embed. And that's the only way right now with Nearpod. But again, like I said before, they're doing updates. So hopefully soon they'll change that so that we can just have GIFs wherever we want them. But the workaround I have right now is to find that 3 to 6 second video and put that in there.
What add-ons do you have that you can't live without?
Definitely the slide translator. Love that. Nearpod. I also have my obsession of fonts. So this is Extensis Fonts, and it has hundreds of font styles. And in 1 second, when you click it, you can add it to your library of fonts. So I don't have to constantly be going through this add-on. I just pick a bunch and then I can have them saved to my library, because isn't that amazing to have choice? I also like Easy Accents, which is helpful for world geography and for foreign language teachers, because so many words have accent marks. And I am playing around with a few others, but those are my go-to ones. And Slido is a poll tool, like where you can take a poll inside of your slideshow, which is nice. Nearpod has an option for that as well, built in. So it's like Nearpod, for the most part, is like a one-stop shop for most things, but I really love that font one a lot, Extensis Fonts.
I saw the FET simulations on the side. Have you used that before?
Oh, this one?
Yes.
So this is not something that I particularly have used before, but it's great for math and science, because it goes through different, I want to say they're like animated, but they're like animated videos where they're going through a lesson, and it's super good for math and science. This is definitely for you guys for Nearpod. So right now I'm working with high school. If I added that randomly into the middle of my nations one, and then I would save and go to Nearpod. And then I'm going to preview the presentation so that we can look at what the FET video is like. Because I don't really get to use those as a social studies teacher. Let's see, where's the FET? I think it's the first one. Here you go. And so it'll go through and they can click on different things and it'll explain. Like, oh, so they get to play around with it, which is great. Highly recommend for math and science. Any other questions?
There's no more questions in the chat box. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box.
Yes, hopefully we've gotten the majority of the questions that would pop into people's heads. Oh, and you can see all the ones that I clicked are showing up, so that's great. Okay, well, we really flew through this one.
Yes, Candy. To get the video of this session, you will just click the link after we end the broadcast. After we end the broadcast, you'll just click that same link that brought you here, and now it will take you to the video of the session. So this is being recorded, so you can go back and replay. I think I've got down some notes here. I need to check out Slides Go and do the Extensis add-on, like both of those.
Yeah, I know that was a little bit faster, but our first session had a lot of those questions, so I was able to hit those.
Yeah, as you're going, and then Toshiba followed up with some of them that they didn't ask to. Great job, ma'am. That's why you've got that doctorate degree, I guess.
Yeah, I really highly recommend y'all play with the add-on in Google Slides and Nearpod, especially if you're an Aldine person. Reach out to your DLS so that you can get that district special gold level Nearpod access so you can get into their libraries. Because, I mean, while it's, great for us to add the video and be able to add our own questions, it's also nice sometimes to just be able to go to their video library and be like, oh my gosh, Cairo, yes, questions already for me, Nearpod. Thank you so much.
Yes,
it really helps make our life a lot easier, and it's one of those things that I think is really important, especially now in how we are having to teach, to just give ourselves a break and be able to do these assessment pieces inside of our lesson. Yes, so you can always go back and edit, Samantha, all the time. When you're in the Nearpod itself, and you can actually go back, because remember, Google saves anything that you create automatically. You can go back and edit it and then reopen your add-on to Nearpod and then resave. So I will show you that right now. So say for some reason I woke up and was like, oh my gosh, I completely want to change this presentation. So let's change this to think. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to open my Nearpod, and I'm going to edit my lesson because I've already previously put my Nearpod stuff in there. And I'm just going to click save and go, and it'll update the save right here. And when you do the embed, any save or changes that you make auto update in your page on Schoology or Canvas or your private website that you've embedded it to. So you can constantly update and change, and it'll do that. And if you want to edit inside, you just click that and it'll take you back to your presentation so you can do that. And then if you have the duplicate, remember, if you want to do just like the Nearpod one, refresh the page. I think I've made too many duplicates. Do you think Nearpod's freaking out because they're like, why? But you can edit that as well and go through and fix whatever you need to fix.
We had one question that generated, and it says, what are your math and science recommendations again?
So definitely the FET and collab boards, and also the writing tool. So, okay, want to open it. So when you're in Nearpod, I really like the collaborate board and draw it. And then obviously there's a graphing calculator one, and FET, which has the simulations that we just saw, where the kids can actually click on and manipulate different things that relate to math and science. And it gives you a bunch of different options. And that's always really good for y'all.
You're at your 10-minute warning.
Oh, hopefully that was good for Miss Thomas and for Miss Marie, Miss Samantha Marie. I hope I got y'all's questions. I hope this is helpful for y'all. I really just want to make technology more accessible and easy for people to use because it's a lot that's being thrown at us, and this is one of the things that it's not hard. Like you just take a time to like really look through it and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I can just click that and that's great. Instead of being like, oh, I have to put in a code. I'm not a coding person. I like copy and pasting things.
Mm-hmm. Do y'all have any other questions for Kiran?
Okay. No questions, just lots of compliments. Great job.
Thank you so much, y'all. I appreciate you coming, and hopefully this helps you out a little bit.
Well, if we don't have any more questions, I guess we can give them the super secret password.
Oh my gosh.
Let me just make sure I'm going to give y'all the right one. We are in session 3. All right, your session 3 super secret password is Inspire. It is case sensitive, so that is a capital I. Inspire, your super secret password. All right. Well, thank you, Kiran, so much for doing these 2 sessions. Thank you, Toshiba, getting those questions in there with everybody. And thank you all for joining us. Session 4 is going to be, I think, the recap of is like the lunch keynote. I think he's going to be doing that again. It's going to be a lunch session, and then we'll be back with more sessions at 12 o'clock, everybody. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. And again, Inspire, case sensitive. And I'm going to end our broadcast. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.